Welcome back. Monday afternoon. We're here with some NHL DFS picks, line of advice, FanDuel, and DraftKings. Back for our weekly NHL segment. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined today by Mr. Jack at DFS_Magic as he's walking back into the room. We'll get him on the mic. What's up, Jack?
Hey Brian, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man. Just in time. I saw you just come back into the room and put the headset on. So good timing there. So, um,
Yeah. Sorry, loud noise is going on in the other room.
yeah, I know the deal. So, no worries there. We'll be here till 5:30 p. Or sorry, we're starting at 5:30. We'll be here till 6 p.m. Eastern. Slate locks at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, and we'll be talking about some of our favorite stacks, favorite goalies, review some lineup strategies and construction tips. Use the Occupy model. Use the OccupyFantasy.com lineup builder powered by DFS Magic. Jack, there's been some discussion in the Discord between me and you in our private chats about how tough NHL's been the last couple of weeks. And, I think the biggest thing we could say is it's one of the most variant heavy sports. So it's no surprise that sometimes we'll go weeks without a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think several folks, myself included, kind of got a little drunk on winning and felt like it was just as simple as we just build the same kind of lineups every night and we're just going to keep taking down prizes. And looking back, I think it's clear that it's a good strategy, but we also had some positive variance go our way. And it's swinging back a little bit. And, I think one other thing people can take solace in is part of our strategy is to try to understand what professionals do. And a lot of the professionals that we've seen take down regular contests have not been doing as well lately either.
Yeah, it's not just us, right? And again, if you have a correlation heavy approach and there are slates that are consecutive or 2 weeks in a row where a lot of suboptimal lineup constructions are winning, it's bound to happen. So, but yeah, we're going to get into that here. And Jack, I know a couple new features added to the builder, so we'll discuss that as well. Before we get started, though, while you're in here, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. If you like what you see, get notified whenever we do any live streams here on YouTube or upload any videos to our YouTube channel. You'll see that new join button right below the video. You can click join here on YouTube. You'll join our YouTube channel and get access to our Discord, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord with instructions. And you also get access to the super cool Occupy Fantasy emojis during the chat. You don't want to be left out, so make sure you click that join button. Just $2.99 a month to get access to that. So, Jack, actually up on screen here, I do have the line stack dashboard in the Occupy Fantasy model. The even strength dashboard ranks every stack on the slate. And you and I, right before we went live, we're talking about there are some interesting lines tonight that are typically popular, but are going to go under the radar tonight, at least according to our rankings and our projected ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's a good time to remind everyone kind of how you use the dashboard to identify the target stacks just in general. And then by explaining that, I think it'll clearly pop out, which ones look good to us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick before we do jump into this, got some people in the chat saying we got some Rangers issues on the COVID list. I'm not going to try to say the names because that's part of our shtick here, not knowing how to say hockey names or even know what the sport's about. But 3 guys from the Rangers on the COVID list. So, Jack, definitely a situation to monitor there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think they most of the games are 7 p.m. tonight, right? I think they probably are. Yeah, they are. So at least we'll probably get 10 minutes of notice, which is better than after slate lock. But yeah, that's a tough one. It might drive ownership down. I don't really have a strong answer. I don't think they're going to be a heavily used team tonight anyway. So maybe a good chance to get a little bit of leverage without going too crazy with them.
Yeah, so just keep an eye on that if you're playing tonight. Monitor the news. We'll see if that game does get postponed. We don't know yet. If it doesn't, we'll likely see some line shifts and lines moving around. Just guarantees low ownership. Jack, that reminds me of actually the Islanders, who we've been playing seemingly every single night for the past month. They had a change. Anders Lee went down, and they put a guy on their top line right before lock. No one knew about it, and he was like 1% owned and was super correlated with Barzal and Eberle. But that's just an example there of being cognizant of line changes before lock.
Yeah, his name was Bellows. Didn't know who he was, but end up in 6-7% of my lineups and scored like 25 points. And I think you're right. I mean, if you're going to play, especially these large slates, you really got to, especially if you're going to play a decent amount of your bankroll, you got to just try to be glued from 6:30 to 7 or whatever the slate lock is, and just look for those things. Because like you said, that very small change and making that swap can be the difference between winning and losing every night.
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't want to be the guy at the end of the night say, "I can't." Who the hell played this 1% owned guy when it was really just the sharps that were hanging around before lock that ended up playing him. So what's up to everybody in the chat? If you do have questions, again, we're here till 6 p.m. Eastern. Any questions about this slate in particular or NHL DFS strategy as an overall theme, go ahead and ask it in the chat. We'll answer it here before we get out of here. So Jack, some of those low-owned teams that we were talking about, Boston, their top line going to go a little bit lower owned than we normally see them sometimes, and they're one of the highest correlated lines there are. Edmonton surprisingly should see lower ownership tonight. They are an underdog and don't have the highest team total, or don't have a team total that we're used to seeing from them as of late. But then, of course, the model's recent favorite, the San Jose Sharks, they are projected just 5 to 11% ownership, depending on which site you're playing on. And I wanted to get your opinion on them in particular because they have the lowest team total on the slate, just 2 goals. It has moved up in the betting markets, but how eager or do you limit yourself when you see a team that has a super low team total but ranks pretty highly?
I don't. I'm usually in the trust the model frame of mind because I know that team total is one thing that you guys look at, but the reality is there are I don't know how many, dozens is probably the right order of magnitude. Different statistics you're looking at, and to your point, the degree of correlation in the lines matter. So even if they're only projected for 2 goals, we know that top line is very tightly correlated. They play on the power play together. So all you need is 2 really well correlated goals, definitely 3 to get them there. And like you said, at their ownership, you don't have to play a ton of them to get that leverage.
Exactly. So we got Cody in the chat, says favorite FanDuel goalie. So Jack, I guess we'll talk about goalies here for a little bit. As always, and I haven't talked to you in I guess about a week now, at least on stream. Our strategies and our findings change every single week. But any change to the thought that we're mostly fading high-owned goalies in high-risk contests?
No, I'm going to continue to do that. And I do think, one detail came up in the chat, in the Discord, which is, hey, winning is way more important for goalies on FanDuel. That's true. But when you have a high-risk mindset, what that means is everyone's going to think that, and that means they're just going to be that much more likely to play favorites, which means the ownership is going to be even more concentrated. On DraftKings, you notice that the goalie ownership is flatter, and that's because people realize that number of saves matters more than wins. So I'm with you. For a high-risk mentality, I think fading high on goalies. And I just briefly was looking at the schedule tonight, and I noticed the 4 p.m. game, Nashville's winning 3-0, and I think Tampa was like a minus 300 favorite or something, right? So there's a great example of it.
Absolutely, and music to our ears. One of the most popular goalies tonight will be Fleury, assuming he starts. We got him projected basically 15% on both sites, but he's facing one of our top underrated stacks in the Sharks. So just double leverage there. If the Sharks go off or score a couple goals and get the win, then it has that double torpedo effect of Fleury lineups shooting down the leaderboards and your Sharks lineups skyrocketing to the top of the leaderboard. So got to love that as well. So anyways, back to Cody's question, favorite FanDuel goalie tonight. For me and Jack, it's got to be Demko, I think, who is top 2 in the model. Doesn't have extremely high ownership, 9% DraftKings, 10% FanDuel. Line movement in his favor. Doesn't have the money lines of Fleury or Vanacek, but still minus 180 and, probably right at the peak of the range of guys we're willing to consider.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I'm, I probably won't pick a single favorite. I'm more with you, and I could pick the ones I don't want to play, and you hit them both.
Exactly. Yeah, those 2 guys for sure stand out. Let's see, we got Jerry in the chat. Tim, what's up, everybody? Again, we're here till 6, so if you have questions, go ahead and ask them. So Jerry says, and this is a good transition to get over to the builder, he's satellite hunting tonight, so congrats, Jerry, for doing that. Fantasy Hockey World Championship, which, by the way, I found out today is a completely virtual event. If for some reason that was a driver in your decision to play those contests, there's the information. It's completely 100% virtual this year, May 1st. Found that out today. The 318 blue line, that's a $222 tournament on DraftKings. The 325 sticks, that's the big $10 or $11 tournament. When using the builder, what's the good randomizer setting? So Jack, these satellites all vary in sizes. The sticks small, the blue line's pretty big. The Fantasy Hockey World Championship, depending on which one you're playing. Like, any thought on the randomizer setting for those smaller satellites?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing with randomizer is how many lineups are you building? 0 to 10 lineups, I would definitely use low. 20-ish lineups, it's probably low. 20 to 50, low, medium. Anywhere above 50, I would definitely run on high. So then you have to ask yourself, are you trying to build one lineup and enter it in all of these satellites, or are you trying to build a handful of lineups and spread them all out? I think if you're doing the handful approach, probably building 20 or so lineups on medium sounds about right. But if you were trying to build 1 or 2 lineups, I would run it on low. And we might do this today. But we've done it on previous streams, is where you can kind of see on low randomizer when the builder is trying to really build optimal lineups, what it's using the most and what it's pairing together the most.
Exactly. We'll do that here right now. Just while you were talking, Jack, I went and set the salary 48K to 50K. This is on DraftKings, by the way. Set just some of the basic settings that we set: no defender and utility, full stacking. Got on the low randomizer setting, so we'll get the most optimal output. And then I did just bring up the stack. Actually, before I did that, I X'd out the 2 popular goalies, thumbs up 2 of the highest projected that aren't popular. And now I brought up the stack dashboard, which is where you can control all the stack settings. And again, if you don't use the builder and you're just watching this show, this is great for lineup construction tips when you're hand building. So just keep that in mind. And then once we output it, you'll see what the model likes and just what we're thinking for tonight's slate. So hang in there. So Jack, we have the typical settings that we've had, but the 2 recent additions since the last time we've live streamed are the max power play percentage, where you can enter a percentage here, and then the use of the power play two grouping. If you want to explain what those 2 additions are.
Yeah. So power play 2. So we had some feedback, and myself included. I think we noticed the builder's propensity for loving power play stacks, and it's not really a surprise when you look at players in the power play are typically the highest rated guys. So it makes sense that it would use those guys the most. But, those guys don't play together as often. There's kind of some subjectivity there. Some teams are better at it than others. And also some teams are shuffling their power plays, in the last couple games, and you might not trust their projected power play lineup as much. So we've given you more ways to control how much power play usage you're getting. So that checkbox is, hey, some teams actually have 2 power play units they use a lot. Some teams really only have 1. So it just gives you a quick and easy way to, by team, toggle whether or not you wanted to use the power play 2 at all. And then the percentage is a relative percentage to that team. So like simple example, if you're building 100 lineups, you set Carolina to 10%. So you'll get 10% of your 10 lineups with Carolina. If you set the power play stacking percentage to 50%, that means no more than half of those 10 lineups would have a Carolina power play stack in them.
Yeah, and it's a great way to control it, because sometimes the builder will get crazy with power play stacks and wanting to use a ton of them. So this is a great way to control it. And like you said, all these options really help control before you have to go in and hand tweak them after the fact. So I've set our basic settings here. I'm going to close this out. We'll build 150 lineups on low just to see what we get. So while we're building this, Jack, we're waiting for the output. We got a few questions in the chat. The Real Bunk says, who are your favorite underdogs tonight? And we'll probably answer that question here once we see the output. And then Linux has a pretty high level question here, Jack. Goalie selection, important or punt to position? And my answer would be worry about your stacks first and fill in goalie last for high risk contests. But for low risk contests, it's one of the first positions you want to fill because generally it's projectable. You want to get that high floor at the position. Any changes or objections to that, Jack?
No, I think you hit it right on. It's the low risk, high risk thing for sure.
Cool. So yeah, Linux. If you're playing high risk contests, leagues, satellites, GPPs, worry about your stacks first, then figure out your goalies last. And you'll hear this as MLB rolls around here in the next month or so. Very similar application. And if you're playing low risk contests, 50-50s, head to heads, double ups, start with that goalie, high money line, high ownership, get those guys in first. And then figure out your skaters after the fact. It all depends on the type of contest that you're playing. All right, so we got our output here, Jack, and I'm going to go to the team pair exposure tab. So we'll see, no surprise, San Jose near the top, Florida, Vegas, Boston, Philly, Vancouver in the mix, Calgary. It seems to me like the builder likes Florida tonight, Jack.
Yeah, just a little bit. And, that is one where I think when you looked at the even strength dashboard, they're very highly ranked, very highly owned. I think they have strong Vegas numbers tonight. And we know that it is okay, to a large extent in NHL to just eat the chalk. The reason being is that we're playing fully correlated lineups and the majority of the field are not. So if Florida crushes, you're going to have more fully correlated lineups than they will. And so you'd be more likely to do well with them. One I'd point out here, Vancouver's up there. It's not super high, but if you look back at the ownership, I believe they're near the top. And we've seen this time and again, Brian, the team playing Ottawa, massive favorite, massive ownership, massive projections on other sites. They don't always do well. And, back to the question of underdog, not that I love Ottawa or anything, but Ottawa tends to put up a fight and has ruined plenty of slates where the chalk team is the Ottawa opponent.
Yeah, I mean, even last night, now granted, Toronto got there a little bit, but Ottawa still won the game 4-3, and they had some goals. And I think you had Batherson in some of your lineups, and that worked out well for you, right?
Yeah, yep. He was very low ownership, scored a couple goals. Dacic also, if that's how you pronounce it, was in a lot of, those two players were in almost all of the top lineups because they were low owned. And like you were saying about the leverage play, when a lot of people play that heavily favored goalie, those people are shooting down the board just as fast as you're shooting up with your low owned, opposing skaters.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of underdogs, obviously we talked about San Jose already. Pittsburgh, relatively a coin flip. The model likes them. Chicago against Florida. Team total is moving for Chicago, so like them as well. And then, Jack, we briefly mentioned it earlier, but this is one of the rare scenarios where we can get Edmonton at lower ownership as an underdog. But, I mean, again, the correlation is still there, and they still have one of the best players in hockey.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I don't think we're going to see Connor McDavid at 5% ownership, and he's still going to get his 30-40%. But I imagine what we'll see is his wingers will be significantly lower owned tonight. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Yamamoto is in the 10% range, which when you just think about that is crazy low for, like you said, having the opportunity to play with McDavid. But it's a rare opportunity to get leverage on that stack, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, seeing the ownership in the teens as a total is pretty rare. Normally, we're seeing them way up there on most slates. All right, it's 5:48. We're here for 12 more minutes. If you're watching this and you like what you see and you're not already, go ahead and click the subscribe button below the video. That will get you notified whenever we release any new content here on YouTube or whenever we go live and break down a slate. If you haven't already, you can click the join button right below the video. You'll see a little button that says join. That's relatively new since last week. You can now become a YouTube member of our channel. And what that does is it gives you direct access to our Discord channel, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. And it also gives you usage of the Occupy Fantasy emojis during these live streams. You can't miss out on those. So just click the join button, $2.99 a month, right below the video. And in the chat, Jack, Swaglord Ken says it's pronounced Kachuk or Kachuk, so for future reference.
You probably still butchered it, even though you gave us the right words.
I know. He said it phonetically, and we still messed it up.
I want to point out, back to Jerry's question about the satellites. You're on the team pairs page here, and what we were saying about running low randomizer is you see these huge percentages of teams paired together. I mean, San Jose, Florida, 32%. What is that telling you? If you were building 150 lineups, would you actually want to enter 32% of those lineups with that pair? Absolutely not. That's why we have the high randomizer. But what that tells you is when the builder is looking at salary and projection, those two teams fit really nicely together. So when we're in our single lineup mentality, Brian, we're looking for those higher team pairs, for on low randomizer.
Absolutely. And there's no surprise if we go to the card view, we see that, yeah, here we go. Florida and San Jose comprise the top, Jesus, 4, 6, like, dude, like literally the top 12, 15 lineup pairings. So yeah, the builder likes that a lot and a lot of different ways they can fit together. Really interesting. I'm going to go back to the team pair exposure page because I did want to ask you something. It came to my mind. Yes. Okay. So 32%, right? We're probably not going to run. If you're building 20 or 150, you really don't want this type of exposure just because that's a lot of eggs in one basket, right? San Jose plus Florida. However, the other side of the coin here, Jack, is we saw a guy or a girl. It was a DFS player last week or the week before who took down like 28 of the top 30 spots in the FanDuel GPP, like all 10 of the top 10 spots. Just an incredible feat. And we can't look into their exposures just because it's FanDuel. But Jack, I imagine that person probably had a similar, highly concentrated build like we see here in the low randomizer.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was incredible. I've never seen anything even close to that. I imagine you haven't either, and you've been playing longer than me. But yeah, it's kind of this trade-off, and we don't have a clear answer. But the more you spread yourself on pairs, the more likely you are to have at least one or two lineups that get pretty close. But you're not going to be able to. You're going to have a lot of competition. Whereas if you are willing to take the risk on a high team pair like this, obviously if it doesn't hit, you're dead. But if it hits, that's where you can end up with this massive leverage and give yourself a really good chance to win. So there's always a trade-off there.
Yeah. Do you remember how many games were on that slate for that domination?
I don't. I don't think we've had a slate under 5 games for quite some time. So it would have been at least 5, probably 6. But we should look. But it was shocking. It was just shocking.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was thinking of, right? Like if it is a 4, 5, 6 game slate, that kind of approach makes a little bit more sense. Not as many options to overtake you. If it hits, it hits. And it doesn't even have to hit that hard for it to be the most optimal. Whereas on a 10-game slate like tonight, probably not an approach you want to take because very rarely will two teams blast the other 18 teams out of contention. So I think that's something to keep in mind too.
Yeah. When I won the FanDuel one, I don't know, it was 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago now. It was a super stack of a game, but it was a 7-6 game, and it was our favorite San Jose one. But yeah, it took, to your point, it took a 7-6 game, and it was still very close, right?
Yeah, it still was very close. And again, that seems like an eternity ago, right? 3 weeks in NHL time.
Yeah, no, right. Yours was right a couple days after me, I think, the Monday, Sunday night. I don't remember.
Yeah, it feels like eras ago. So. All right, 7 minutes left in the show, folks. If you're watching here, get your final questions in the live chat. Jack, any other things you want to discuss here? Any other topics? Any other build settings?
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about lineup construction on FanDuel again. Really DraftKings too, but I think part of as we've all kind of come back down to earth and stopped winning literally every single night, people are starting to, take another look at lineup construction. And, Brian, that's something we're clearly still learning about every day. We don't claim to know the perfect lineup strategy. But I will make a case for why to not always use a 4-4 on FanDuel and just get your thoughts on it. I'm still going to play a lot of 4-4, but you might look at a team they're not on the slate tonight, but Minnesota's a good example. They put up a lot of goals recently with their offensive skaters. They don't really have a go-to defender. They don't have that, Brett Burns or Roman Josi or Chris Letang kind of player. So when you're building a 4-man stack with them with a defender, it's really hard to choose the defender. And that might be a case where you say, I'm going to play 3-man stacks with Minnesota, and I'm going to play a one-off defender or some other one-off. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, and a lot of this discussion happens in the Discord or in DMs in our Discord, where the people who know hockey and follow hockey the most will identify those situations, and it's really interesting. But yeah, there are definitely some teams like that where the defenders just don't get involved that much. And they rotate, and it can be a pain. So I think that does make sense too, right? Not necessarily force a 4-man stack with Minnesota, max of 3. So if we did that, we would set a rule, Minnesota, They're not on the slate, but let's just say Montreal, and we'll do max of 3, and we'll make sure that we got no defenders in our player pool for Minnesota. So that's interesting. That's super interesting. Definitely a way to think about it. And I think for those of you watching, just shows the process of fine tuning and tweaking and always improving what you're doing, because everyone else out there is doing it. At least the winners are. And Jack, like, it goes to show the dedication, and we're finding this out for ourselves, but then of course we're relaying the information here on streams, in the Discord, in the plugs, and just because you won the FanDuel GPP, just because I won the DraftKings GPP 3 weeks ago, doesn't mean that the very next day we weren't looking for more edges.
Absolutely, man. It's always, I think, what you and Moose start out with, like, how do we do? What do we learn? Even when you win big, what did you do wrong? And to your point, I mean, I've just noticed a lot of my 4-4s have been ruined because it's a team where I wasn't sure about the defender, or it is a power play defender, but they just don't do that much. Or maybe the team is swapping out their defender mid-game. So again, we don't have the clear answer, do this, but we're showing you have the tools with the lineup structure and the percentages and the team rules where you can do these tweaking and experimenting and really try to find that optimal combo.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's sport specific. You'll have these intricacies for MLB, for NFL, League of Legends, like whatever it may be. Like, you'll always find these types of intricacies. We always talk about the high level approach, but then if you get into a specific sport, you can dive deeper in and see how you can impact your builds that way. So let's see here. 3 minutes left. Jerry says that slate was March 9th when that guy dominated, or that person dominated all those lineups. So we'll have to go back on the 3-9 slate to see how many games are there. But all right, rapid fire questions. Folks in the chat, go ahead and ask them. Again, one final ask here. Click subscribe right below the video. That gets you notified. We have people ask us when we go live. If you just click subscribe, you'll get the notification on your phone or your desktop whenever we do go live here on YouTube. And then click the join button if you want to join our Discord channel and get access to the Occupy Fantasy emojis during the live stream. Again, just click join right below this video. You see the button next to the subscribe button. So Jack, what are you playing tonight? What kind of contest?
I am playing the FanDuel GPP and then just doing some satellites on DraftKings. And I decided I didn't do the big GPP on DraftKings, but I did max enter the qualifier. So that's kind of my main one tonight. What about you?
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I kind of similar boat. I max entered the $15 qualifier on DraftKings, and then entered, and this isn't an optimal approach, and I admit this, but I'm entering those 41 lineups into the big DraftKings GPP, and I'm playing those 41 lineups. That's my main set tonight, and of course I'm trying to continue my challenge over on Yahoo. So that's really it for me. And I think as we round this show out, we should talk about contest selection just one more time, because again, as we said in the Discord this morning, Jack, if you play GPPs every night, and that's fine, like as long as you have proper expectations, just because the variance inherent in the sport and in the nature of GPPs can cause really long losing streaks, even if you're not doing anything incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean, you are a well-accomplished, high-risk NFL player, and I mean, how many big takedowns have you had? I don't know, 5, 4, right? And you grind every day, and you just have to accept that you're going to have to learn from getting close or just deal with the variance, right?
Yeah, dude. I took down the 100K for MMA 2 Saturdays ago. Like 3 days after that, won the NHL GPP. Just like absolutely on fire. Very next day, get the NHL Fantasy Hockey World Championship qualifier. I literally have not won a slate since, right? And that just goes to show the peaks and valleys of this sport, of this hobby that we have. And just to, everyone out there, don't get down if you lose, if you're using the builder, if you're playing GPPs, because you're going to lose often. Hell, Jack, I say I lose 90% of the slates I play. So just don't get down.
Yeah, and I know the bottom of your plugs do a great job of trying to recommend contests for people, and it's always obviously fun to talk about max entering big GPPs and winning big GPPs, but the reality is that's not really how you build a bankroll. You build a bankroll with a balanced approach that you guys lay out, and there are a lot of contests that allow you to do that, allow you to win more often, and probably even build some confidence. I think I'm good at FanDuel single game, and even for NFL, and my confidence was, getting shaken last year. So it's just tough, man. It's tough.
It is. It's the vicious cycle of I don't know what I'm doing. I can't win a slate. I'm the worst player ever. And then you win, and then you're immediately reminded, oh, that's right. I'm the best that ever lived at this sport. So, and it's that cycle over and over and over again. And, people in the chat saying they've lost for a while now, too. Again, just stay focused, focus on the process, and you'll be okay over the long run. Just make sure if you're following what we're saying and what we're doing, you'll be okay over the long term. So, Jack, final thoughts. We've hit it all here.
Yeah, one more quick feature we added a couple days ago. If you want to go into the builder, sure, and in the multi-build in the tools, you see that new button for copy from other slate. This is hugely useful. It was hugely useful for me, and I think it helps people out. Part of what we talk about with the time management of playing NHL and that time before slate lock when line rushes get released and goalies are getting confirmed, it's really, really hard to re-optimize everything on both sites. And so that tool allows you to basically set everything, exposures, lines, projection, your player pool in either DraftKings or FanDuel, and then just go to the other slate and copy from it and immediately get everything put in there. The last few nights, there've been a couple like that. The Bellows, the New York Islanders, one that you mentioned, I think that came out at like 6:50 p.m. and I was able to fully rebuild on both sites specifically because I was able to do that import.
So basically, what you were doing, you just copied for that particular instance. Did you just copy his projection and his lines over, or for every player, or did you include any other fields?
Yeah, so I did basically so the player pool, the stack pool, the lines, and I think I did projections at that point because it was just so close. And I think I had set. He may have been a guy where I had to set the projection manually, so I just imported it. But you have full control. If you want to keep stuff separate, it kind of just depends.
Yeah, we've had people talk about this type of feature for the longest time now. FanDuel, DraftKings, NBA, NFL, especially when you have the week to do it. PGA, I want to get all these guys in my player pool. Really easy way to do it so you don't have to click buttons on both sites. So, all right, let's bring our faces back in the mix here, and we'll close out the show. There we go. All right, so again, we appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back tomorrow. I think it's an NBA stream with Moose and Garrett. So again, click subscribe. You'll be notified when we go live there. Wednesday, PGA. Thursday, NBA. Friday, probably League of Legends. Saturday, we're back with UFC. 6 days a week, live streams here on YouTube. If you like what you saw today, you can go to OccupyFantasy.com, become a member, get access to our daily plugs, our Occupy models, and our lineup builder, powered by Jack's DFS Magic. So at DFS_Magic_ is where you can follow Jack and news about the lineup builder. You can follow me at Brian Jester FF. You can follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy. So again, we appreciate everyone listening tonight. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Brian. Good luck, everyone.